Welcome to this very unique, very high-tech Golden Celebration. I'm Dennis Barnes, President of the State Bar of Michigan, and I'm your Zoom host for today's event. Let me begin by saying that it's really an honor for me to be able to address this group, because it includes some living legal legends. We have in your class two former Michigan Supreme Court justices, Dennis Archer and Cliff Taylor, several judges, including two-time State Bar Award winner Robert Holmes Bell, before whom I argued my first motion as a lawyer. I'm sure he doesn't remember it, but I sure do. And many, many outstanding attorneys. This group truly changed the legal landscape, and I'm sincerely humbled to be here with you. That being said, I sure wish we could be together in person today. As I was preparing for this event, I was wondering what we would have thought 50 years ago today if we got a futuristic glimpse of this meeting. I bet we'd all have been so wowed by the technology that we wouldn't even have realized we were in the midst of a global pandemic. More on that in a minute. But for now, I'd like to have a little fun and journey back with you to the year you were sworn in as members of the State Bar of Michigan. 1970. It brought us so many culturally significant inventions, decisions, debuts, occurrences, and events. We all remember the Nerf Ball. It was introduced in 1970. It got its name from the slang term for the foam padding used in off-road racing. The marketing slogans promise that one can throw it against the wall. You can't damage lamps or break windows. You can't hurt babies or old people. Well, that didn't matter too much to us in the 1970s, and we certainly tried, but it does now. 1970, Monday Night Football made its debut. The Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl. The average price for the Super Bowl in 1970, $15. The Chiefs also won the Super Bowl this year, their first in 50 years. The average ticket price this year, $4,000. Meanwhile, our Lions still haven't been to the Super Bowl. How many of us would have been surprised if I'd told you that in 50 years ago? In other sports news from 1970, the New York Knicks won the NBA title. The Boston Bruins won the Stanley Cup, with Bobby Orr scoring 40 seconds into overtime to sweep the St. Louis Blues. The Baltimore Orioles won the World Series 2 years after our Tigers brought us that great 1968 World Series victory. And of course, there were several significant legal decisions from the Burger Court in 1970. In Welch versus United States, the court held that an individual may claim conscientious objector status even though he or she professes no religious-based objection. In Waller versus Florida, the court held for the first time that double jeopardy protects defendants from successive prosecutions by states and municipalities for offenses based on the same criminal conduct. As for pop culture, America's Top 40 was born in 1970, with Detroit Northwestern High School and Wayne State University graduate Casey Kasem as its hosts. The first show featured the last time both Elvis and the Beatles had songs simultaneously in the top 10. Sadly, several months later, Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin both died at the age of 27. With the prior death of Brian Jones and the subsequent death of Jim Morrison, both at age 27, some began to attribute significance to the death of musicians at that age, leading to the creation of the 27 Club. This was only fueled by Kurt Cobain's death 24 years later. And of course, on April 10, 1970, the Beatles broke up. Isn't it always about the music? The music connects our memories. It binds us. It brings us back to specific events and moments in time. Sometimes it's even prophetic. Two songs from 1970 really stood out. not just because they're great songs, but because they were seemingly prophetic. The Beatles released their 12th and final album a month after they broke up. And on that album was their 20th and final #1 hit, The Long and Winding Road. That song begins with the lyrics, I won't sing it, "The long and winding road that leads to your door will never disappear. I've seen that road before. It always leads me here, leads me to your door." And the #1 song for all of 1970 was Simon and Garfunkel's Bridge Over Troubled Waters, which tells us, when you're weary, feeling small, when tears are in your eyes, I will dry them all. Like a bridge over troubled waters, I will lay me down. Could there have been two songs that would be more prophetic, more symbolic of our journey from law school to today, and of your role in society over the last 50 years? As you all can attest, the last 50 years have certainly been a long and winding road. But despite all the twists and turns and the ups and downs, the road never disappeared. Thanks to great judges, great lawyers, and human beings like all of you, it never does. You provided the light and the guidance for all of us. The bridge over troubled waters for so many people, myself included. And thanks to your example and leadership, we have been able to stand strong during the worst storms, and we've been able to stay humble and grateful during the best times. I was sworn in as president of the State Bar a little less than a year ago. I waited for a long time for the honor, actually, of leading this great organization. And at the time, I had a clear vision of how things would go. That vision included working with many of you and many other colleagues in person at Mackinac Island, our annual event, and elsewhere. Well, it certainly has been a long and winding road, and I certainly needed a bridge, and I got it. We all got it from all of you. When this pandemic hit, we pivoted like never before. We became a city on a hill, so to speak, a beacon for lawyers and the public who, like all of us, were blindsided by the depth and breadth of the crisis. We learned what we were made of, and we learned that something with a strong foundation doesn't crumble in the midst of the fiercest storm. You are that foundation. You are the bridge over troubled waters. For me, for the lawyers who will come after me, and for all those who needed light and guidance. As the scriptures say, and as Peter Parker, Spider-Man's alias, his alter ego, said back in the 1970s, with great power comes great responsibility. You have wielded that power well, and for that we are all very grateful. Thank you, and congratulations.
Honorees, congratulations on reaching your 50th anniversary as an attorney in 2020, a year that has felt like a half century for most of us. I'm sure this isn't how you envisioned celebrating 50 years in service to the practice of law, watching this speech from the confines of your own home instead of a ballroom surrounded by family, friends, colleagues, and fellow bar members, but the global pandemic has forced everyone to pivot. Heck, I expected to have to wear pants while making this speech. We no longer take things for granted that used to be routine: meals at our favorite restaurants, trips to the movie theater, a lazy summer afternoon at a ballpark. They all seem like luxuries. At a time when people have more information at their fingertips than ever before, we're engulfed by a sense of uncertainty as we try to figure out how to stay healthy and safe. If there is a silver lining to this period in our history, it's got to be the unintended consequences of the world pushing the collective pause button in March. For example, families typically pulled in a million different directions because of commitments and activities are spending more time together and, dare I say, enjoying it. We've reconnected with neighbors and a few friends as more of us walk around our neighborhoods, and maybe it's a function of being locked down for most of the spring, but can you remember a summer that had better weather? Now, I know what you're thinking. What does any of this have to do with being a lawyer for 50 years? Well, as has become a part of this celebration, the State Bar of Michigan asked you to answer some questions about your career highlights and your hobbies and interests. It's no surprise that the responses were as unique and varied as the members of our organization and the people that we represent. But in the course of compiling your answers, certain themes emerged. One was family. Nearly every respondent mentioned family and spending time with children and grandchildren as a hobby. Several cited family-related career highlights. One member noted moving the admissions of his 2 sons to practice law. One pointed to his advocacy for hearing screening for newborns in the state of Michigan, a push sparked after his daughter was identified with severe hearing loss as a toddler. A member wrote of litigating an employment case in federal court with his son as co-counsel. One noted his daughter became an attorney and her daughter is now in law school. Finally, one honoree said his 2 daughters and their husbands all practice law and joked that some consider it a genetic condition. So family is important, no surprise. Another theme that emerged was a commitment to serving others in a variety of forms. Among this year's honorees are a slew of former judges, federal magistrate judges, 2 state Supreme Court justices, judges on the Michigan Court of Appeals, circuit court judges, and a tribal judge. Some of you have served as federal attorneys, state attorneys, county prosecutors, elected officials, advisors to governors, members of public boards, and leaders of state governmental departments. A few respondents noted leadership roles within the American Bar Association, the State Bar of Michigan, and State Bar of Michigan sections and committees. Many members listed volunteering and community service as hobbies, including one who spearheaded his local bar association's homeless dinner for the needy annually since 1992. Several of you shared your significant legal achievements. Among them, many of you have argued cases before the Michigan Court of Appeals, the Michigan Supreme Court, the U.S. Sixth Circuit Court, and the U.S. Supreme Court. One member defended class action maternity leave policies and practices pursuant to federal law in a case that was eventually resolved by the U.S. Supreme Court. One worked on a brief and attended the Supreme Court hearing for one of the cases that led to President Nixon's resignation. One of you won a Supreme Court case that extended Fourth Amendment protection to digital cell site location information used to physically track individuals. And one member noted serving as a trustee for the federal government's bailout of the Chrysler Corporation in 1979. In short, this year's honorees have done it all. You've negotiated the sales of the Detroit Red Wings and Detroit Tigers. You've brokered deals to bring the Detroit Lions and Pistons downtown, although I'm not sure the Lions was such a good thing after all. You've obtained 7-figure medical malpractice verdicts. You've taught the law students in Beijing. You've created a series of video games. You've exonerated the wrongly convicted, and you've started your own practice, made partner at your firm. All amazing accomplishments that should be celebrated. One respondent succinctly encapsulated a career not as a single highlight, but rather as an accumulation of years of work. There was no single event, this person wrote. It was those times when I was able to help people and families who were in desperate need. I was able to give them the verdict, the settlement, the contract, the comfort, the ongoing support they needed. Thank you for your years of devoted service to the practice of law, and congratulations on reaching a magnificent milestone. Stay safe and stay well.